Covert Lethality, arguably the most nerfed mod of all time, currently providing you with 16 initial combo as well as 100% extra finisher damage. Now just in case you don't know, the reason I say it's arguably the most nerfed mod of all time is because prior to its quote-unquote change, it used to give you the ability to one-shot literally anything in the game as long as you could do a finisher on it. This was unsurprisingly quite strong, especially when paired up with some other mechanics, like for example Ash's Fatal Teleport, which is an augment that makes you perform a finisher whenever you teleport to an enemy with Ash. This was actually for a while the fastest way to deal with infested juggernauts. You would take Ash with Fatal Teleport and one-shot them via a teleport through Covert Lethality. None of this works anymore, obviously, since Covert Lethality has been changed to just give you extra finisher damage. However, recently I was persuaded by one of you guys to try and relive the glory days of Covert Lethality through one particular weapon, and I think we all know which weapon I'm talking about. The Innodem. Dear God, how many videos am I gonna make about this bloody weapon? Now daggers, funnily enough, are not that great when it comes to finishers, as they only get a 10 times multiplier, whereas fist weapons, sparring weapons, or even claws get a 30 times multiplier. But number 1, Covert Lethality is dagger specific, and number 2, the Innodem has an entire line of evolution that are specialized in finishers. So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to start off by picking striking swiftness because extra sprint speed is always nice as we move from enemy to enemy. Then we're gonna take Blade Twister for 60% bonus finisher damage. We're going to follow that up with protracted execution, so we get 20 combo on a finisher, which builds combo very fast, and we're gonna top it all off with stunning brutality, which stuns all aware enemies within a 10-meter radius when we do a finisher. For the Innodem build, we just want damage, 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 and then we add more damage. We start off with primed pressure point for generic melee damage, Covert Lethality for finisher damage, Organ Chatter for crit damage, Sacrificial Steel for a ton of base crit chance, and then I personally went with Finishing Touch because it's cheap and it adds more finisher damage. And to top it all off, we just add Molten Impact, Shocking Touch, and Primed Fever Strike so that we hit as hard as possible. Another good thing about daggers in this situation is that their heavy attacks open enemies up to finishers, so you don't necessarily need anything else. But it only does one enemy at a time, so it's generally better to run something like Inaros with Desiccation so that you can do it en masse. Also, with the Innodem specifically, doing finishers with the Incarnon mode active grants you a stack of Incarnon Resilience, which provides 10% damage reduction, stacks up to 4 times, and lasts until your Incarnon mode runs out. Now, surprisingly enough, with all of this stacked up, we're basically back to the old Covert Lethality. We can one-shot everything in the game if we can do a finisher on it. Now, granted, those are heavy gunners which are weak to corrosive damage, and we're primarily doing corrosive damage, but if you pay close enough attention, you will notice that they're actually dying from the first hit and the finisher hits twice. Now, just in case that's not quite enough damage for you, we can combine it with a good old Fatal Teleport, which in addition to making you perform a finisher whenever you teleport to an enemy with Ash, also adds a ton of extra finisher damage. The one downside with Fatal Teleport is that it performs a back finisher, which feels a lot slower and is also nowhere near as cool as the front finisher, but it does basically all the damage you will ever need. So yes, it is absolutely possible to relive the glory days of Covert Lethality. Kind of. The old Covert Lethality scaled infinitely. You would keep one-shotting things as long as you kept doing finishers on them, whereas this setup will eventually run out of damage if you go far enough in Steel Path. So all in all, this is actually not a bad setup at all, especially if you're not a big fan of melee weapons, because you don't need to be in full melee mode to do finishers. You can use whatever weapons you want, and if you happen to run into a really beefy enemy, all you need to do is just open them up to a finisher, give them a good old stabberino, and keep using whatever weapons you want to use. And as always guys, I thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.